Alright.
Hi guys, I know it's Royal. Um, White Forest as Amina. If you're not already aware, and there's a slide with it already. Um, White Forest is my second most played deck, and it's the deck that I play when I'm not playing Lunalight. Um, I don't have like a very big history of different decks. My first two decks ever were like structurally made. Like decks were Fire King and Hero. Hero when they got the Hero Strike with Dark Law, and then the Fire King structure deck, and then I built around that. Then it was Synchron, and now it's Lunalight slash White Forest. But yeah, I just wanted to do a presentation on this because I enjoy the deck, and I think when I had the idea of doing the presentation, it was the fact that Justice Hunters was going to make Troll a lot less prominent because, you know, hint, this deck dies to Droll. But yeah, I still think it's a pretty competent deck, but we'll just go through it now. Uh, just a little background on White Forest. White Forest is synchro-based archetype released in the Infinite Forbidden, which was early mid last year. As part of the Diabellstar lore, it focuses on light spellcasters and illusion monsters that you use that gain advantage off of sending spells and traps for cost, and said spells and traps in the archetype recur themselves either back to your hand or back to the field once you use them as cost, which allows for boards with like layered interactions, great recursion. Azumina is the fusion based archetype of the same lore that was released in Rage of the Abyss, that focuses on dark illusion monsters that have a little bit more like floodgate, destructive, or disruptive forms of disruption. Um, White Forest has seen like a lot of tops since it's basically it dropped. It's won regionals, it's won national events. Uses many different engines that we'll go through with some combo replays. But stuff like Runic, Centurion, Castira, mainly like for the field spell and birth, and Fiendsmith, which is like what most people are familiar with if you play Master Duel. Um, why would a person play White Forest post Justice Hunters? White Forest gets a little bit of its footing back into the landscape because Droll, if we're just speaking strictly like Justice Hunter decks, is not good into them. Draco Tail plays around it pretty easily, or it only max does one search. Um, VS-K9 can play around it. It can hurt it in some hands, but when I had made this presentation, this was before accounting for any sort of ban list, and they got hit pretty hard. So I'm not sure how much that affects them now. And then Yummy, it's the same thing. They at max search once, which is for the Yummy surprise. Um, Secondly, yeah, the ban list. I was expecting the ban list to hit the decks, either phasing out Malice, phasing out Ryziel, um, which in my opinion, are much more volatile matchups for this deck, especially Ryziel, if we're being specific, just because you kind of need a lot of your monsters to stick on the field. Um, I also think just generally it's a fun deck. It's very rewarding with a lot of skill expression. I think very similarly to like I guess Hero, for example. It has like a lot of tools to do a lot of different things, whether it be floodgating, whether it be OTKing, whether it be setting up layered boards of disruption. And yeah, like I said earlier, it's my second most played deck after Lunalight. I pretty much played it from the deck's announcement in the OCG. Uh, Coach can attest to that. Like June 2024, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna play this deck, or whenever it was announced. Yeah. Um, the last wave of support that I got was in Alliance Insight, which was released earlier this year in the TCG, which rounds out the lore itself, but adds like new disruptions via like the Diabellstar Vengeance and Lycanized Vengeance Dragon. The deck also, in that same set, they released Jurishin, the Cursed Thunder God, which I will show later, which you can make using like the original Diabellstar and Sylvie, or you can make it using the Synchro Poplar, which I will again show you afterwards. Which you can make in two ways. The Diabellstar Vengeance is going to be the easier way to access it. Witch of the White Forest is a field spell, and it gives the deck more consistency, but it also gives the deck a way to access not only one Omni, but it gives you access to another Omni depending on how you do your lines by setting up a Herald, which I will show you when I do the replays. And then Vengeance herself allows you to OTK pretty easily with her effect, which we will go over in a bit. Pros and cons for the deck. I mean, it's like incredibly versatile archetype with layered forms of disruptions. It's easily one of the strongest boards in the game if it gets the full combo. Usually when you see like a lot of like hero replays or a lot of like the replays of the content creators, you usually see them ending on like full boards. And if it was not for the fact that most people don't like, they just fumble the full boards, like you should not be losing with a full White Forest board more times than not. It's just, yeah. You can use back row floodgates by setting them up and then removing them on crackback using cards like Diabell, the level 8, and then you can remove them with LZ or the OG Diabell. New field spell gives it higher consistency with the new field spell and more access to the Diabell monsters. It's one of also the few remaining archetypes, at least if we're talking in a TCG perspective, with an accessible Omni Gate that's in archetype. It's able to also put down a lot of damage for crackbacks and for going second with great recursion, thanks to, again, how the cards interact with one another. The wanted quick play also helps with that as well. And it's a skill expressive and intensive deck. It rewards people with having game and deck knowledge. Just like absolutely fantastic. Cons, Droll and Lockbird folds this deck. Like, this deck cannot play through it. Especially since more times than not, you kind of have to go through a lot just to end on even just a half board. So if they just droll you immediately and your hand isn't stacked already, yeah, it's pretty much unplayable. It's weak to Fuelos and Perulia. It takes up a lot of summons to do the half board. Depending on your hand, Perulia is actually the harder one to play around. Because you can actually play around Fuelos, but if you want to do full board, Fuelos is kind of, you don't want to see it. Lots of engine requirements means less space for Narn engine if we're comparing them to like meta decks. Yummy runs like, what, 20 hand traps. This deck, especially since you have to address the fact that you're going to be going against tier 0 decks, and there's a choice that I make in my deck build for said tier 0 decks. I'd probably say it runs about 10 to 12, something of that nature. Very similar to a lot of combo decks. It's not very good when going second because you don't have a lot of pushes to disruption. So you kind of more times than not want to half board them, or ideally you would prefer to just go first. Um, and then it does require spells and traps to use as cost for like the monster effects for the LZ, for the level 6 Arcelia. You just need spells and traps. If you don't have a spell or trap in your hand, you just open up monsters. You're pretty much screwed. Especially if they say like negate your Sylvie normal summon or special summon, or your stellar special summon. With that said, I think we can go actually into the deck list. Share the screen. Can you see my screen? Yes, no, maybe so. Alright, cool. Alright. So I'm not gonna go too deep into it. Because I assume most people have an understanding of the cards, but yeah. We'll start off with like the engine requirements. Sylvie of the White Forest is your main like normal summon. Searches a White Forest spell or trap. And very similarly, yeah, if you have a synchro, like a White Forest synchro in your graveyard or on your field, you can quick effect bounce it to resummon the Sylvie, which helps with your cost for your deception or just to dodge your Veilers, your Imperms, stuff like that. It is the best normal summon in the deck. It is not the most powerful one, but it is the best one. You would run the LZ of the White Forest. Essentially, she sends a spell or trap to the graveyard from your hand or from the field to special summon itself. And you get to search a White Forest name, which is typically, but not always, going to be the Sylvie. Sylvie and LZ, you mandatory have to run these at 3. Like, there's no way around these. This is the, it's the fairest of the deck, for example, and this is the, I guess, the Vion, but not really. The most powerful starter of the deck is a Stellar. A Stellar, essentially, you send a spell or trap. What happened? Oh, what? Better? Okay, sorry about that. Alright, so yeah. 3 Sylvie. You have to run 3 Sylvie. It's the best normal summon of the deck. You run the 3 LZ. She is the fairest of the deck. It gets you to access to your Sylvie, but not necessarily always. Because if you have a hand of like both of these, you don't necessarily need to. And it helps you again push through disruption. The most powerful starter of the deck is the Stellar. A Stellar off sending a spell or trap summons a light spellcaster tuner from the deck, which slightly helps you play around Droll better, but not really still. And you're typically using a Stellar to summon the Sylvie. The second effect, which definitely comes up, if a monster sends a spell or trap for its effect as cost, a Stellar, if she is in the graveyard, can revive herself back to the field, which gives you additional bodies for whatever you may need, whether it be link plays, fusion plays, or sending again cost for deception. You run the mandatory LZ. She is a special summon from the hand by revealing herself. She does not necessarily need to special summon herself off of her effect. You can special summon the Sylvie or just whatever you might need. Her on-field effect is that she can fusion summon using her using monsters from the field or hand to summon a Azumina monster. And if she's used as synchro material, she adds a Sinful Spoils card from the deck to your hand, which more times than not, but not always, is going to be the Deception of the Sinful Spoils, which will get you access to your Azumina cards. And then you have Tales of the White Forest. If you control an illusion or a spellcaster monster, you can add one White Forest monster from the deck to the hand. And if it is sent to the graveyard to activate a monster effect, you can set the card, which helps with, again, garnering more and more advantage. You would only ever run one of this because it is essentially a brick. It needs a card on field to do something. Otherwise, it's nigh unusable. And then the last two before we go into like the newer White Forest cards. Sinful Spoils of the White Forest has two effects. One, you can special summon a fiend, illusion, or spellcaster monster from your hand, which does come up. It helps you push if they say like negate like the Rosette, the Elzette, I should say, special summon. But you still have like the Sylvie, for example. You can still normal summon the Sylvie, search the Sinful, and then summon any of these if you need to. So you can actually start synchroing off. And then its second effect, it allows you to fusion summon a fusion monster from the extra deck using monsters from your field or hand. It gives you access to a lot of your Azumina cards, but its typical like main use, at least in the way I play it, is to summon Guardian Chimera, usually on your opponent's turn as like another form of disruption. And then the final of the cards is the Morian. Morian is a Book of Moon for any special summon monster. It only targets special summon monsters. Morian helps with disrupting your opponent from like linking off or doing Xyz plays. It also can be used in tandem with your own disruptions. Say they try to droplet you or they resolve Dark Ruler no more. You can still proc a lot of your effects and then just flip your monster face down, and then the effect will go through because it doesn't remember that it was negated in the first place. And yeah, it's another card that's searchable off of the effect of the Azumina Elzette. But yeah, we can now go through the newer cards. Which is the White Forest is the field spell. When it's activated, it allows you to add one White Forest monster from your deck to your hand, but you can't special summon any dark monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. You'll see that this doesn't typically matter because you can still set up a very good board even if you do lock yourself. The second effect is that you can target one White Forest monster that you can control, and it allows you to treat it as a tuner for the turn. And the first time any White Forest monster you would control would be destroyed by battle, it is not destroyed. So it helps with preventing lethal damage if you need to. And yeah, another card. It's very good because you can search it off of Sylvie, you can search it off of the Arciella, which gives you more extenders and gives you the bridge to the new cards that we'll go over right now. Diabelles of the White Witch. So Diabelles of the White Witch can send a spell or trap from the field to the hand to special summon herself. If she is normal or special summon, you can send one Sinful Spoils or one Diabelle card from your deck to the graveyard, which means you can send any of the sort of traps cards like the Sinful Spoils, you can send the Morian, you can send the Cursed Diabelle, which I'll talk about in a bit, and any of like the Wanted Deception. Like, she has a lot of versatility. Secondly, monsters you control can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects while you control two or more Diabelle monsters. So this includes Diabelle Star the Black Witch, Diabelle Star Vengeance, and the Diabell, Queen of the White Forest. Any of these 3 cards, as long as you have one of those 3 on the field, it pretty much protects anything. And she is also searchable off of the effect of LZ, because she is always treated as a White Forest card, which is very nice. In tandem with her is Diabell Star, the Sin Adjudicator, or Diabell Star Vengeance. She's always treated as a Sinful Spoils card. For her summon, you must banish a spell and trap from your hand, field, or graveyard. No, it's hand or graveyard, sorry. To special summon her from the hand or from the graveyard. She, on quick effect, allows you to pay half of your life points, target a card that your component controls, destroy it, and if you have another Diabell Star monster on the field, you can special summon 1 Synchro Tuner, that is illusion or spellcaster from the extra deck. So she by herself is disruption alone, but she also helps set up for additional disruption. So layered disruption, we love to see it. What also makes her very good is that she is always treated as a Sinful Spoils card. So if you already have specific setups, you can send Diabell's the White Witch off of her effect, or you can essentially use her for the Hallowed Azamina's cost effect, which helps you to, summon your Azamina monsters. But yeah, absolutely fantastic card. Gives the deck a little bit more potency, and again, it's a way to play around Fuelos, especially if you send her to graveyard and Perulia, just because she's not an extra deck monster, and she has a good effect. The Phileas Diabell allows you to add 1 level 8 or higher Diabell monster from your deck to your hand. And if only your opponent controls a card, you can special summon it instead. If the card's banished, you can make all your Diabell monsters that you currently control gain 500 attack. The attack boost is permanent, which helps with pushing for game. It helps with preventing your opponent from running over the bodies, because you're typically going to have 3,000 point beat sticks, which is a lot to ask for, especially since Diabell's protects those monsters from being destroyed by card destruction. And if you have the Witches of the White Forest, it's a lot to essentially have to put a lot of damage to either clear the field or just to go for lethal. Curse of Diabell. If you control 2 or more Diabell monsters, send 1 monster you control to the graveyard, destroy all face-up cards your opponent controls. You're typically not using this card for its on-field effect. You're typically using it for its effect when you send it to the graveyard or when you banish it. So if you send it to grave or banish it from the hand or the deck, you can add 1 Diabell spell or trap from the deck to the hand. What you're typically doing is you're summoning Diabell's the White Witch. You're sending the Curse of Diabell to the graveyard to then search the Phileas Diabell, which then searches the Diabell Star Vengeance, and then you banish the Phileas Diabell and the Curse of Diabell to summon for this effect. So you get the 500 point boost, and so you don't have to essentially waste, say, like a Morian, for example. There are times there it might be necessary to, or it actually might be beneficial to. It's not as bad of a cost, because this Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils can essentially recycle any of your Sinful Spoils spells or traps back to your deck. But you typically, would want to just send the Curse of Diabell, because otherwise you really aren't using its main effect. But yeah, I think like that's pretty straightforward for those cards. And the way that they sort of interact kind of leads to how the extra deck is constructed. Um, in terms of the Azamina package or the necessary cards for the Azamina package, you have to run the one Sinful Spoils Deception. It helps to search out your Hollowed Azamina by attributing a monster from your hand or field. It can also search the Azamina LZ, but you're typically using the Azamina to search it in the first place. But it also has there are specific ways you can build your extra deck to make Diabell a starter as well if necessary. But yeah, it on the most basic premise, it gives you access to all your fusion monsters, with the exception of the Guardian Chimera, which I've already mentioned. And then it has a secret effect that if you control an Azamina monster and a monster is sent to the opponent's graveyard, you can gain 1,500, and they lose 1,500 life points. If the card is sent to the graveyard while it was face up during the end phase, you can set it back to your field, which typically comes up in the case, say, that your opponent is running Ghost Spell, for example, which a lot of people, they know to pop the Deception so that the effect doesn't resolve. Hallowed Azamina, you reveal a fusion monster from your extra deck, and for every 4 levels that it has, you can send one Sinful Spoils card from your hand or field to the graveyard. And then you get to summon the fusion monster. Most people already know that you're typically doing like these two. They're like the most basic Azamina cards that most people know. And yeah, it's a Searcher and it's an Omni Negate. You can't go wrong with those cards. And then also, if you have an Azamina monster in the graveyard or that you control, you can send them back to the deck or the extra deck if you're referring to any of the fusion monsters to add the Sacred Azamina back to your hand, which allows you to get off 2 fusion summons during your turn. And then you have the OG Diabell Star, which, if you special summon it or normal summon it, allows you to set a Sinful Spoils spell or trap directly from your deck. So it can set the Deception, but it could also set the Sinful Spoils, and it could also set the Morian. Those are really the only ones. Oh, and the Wanted Seeker, but you're really never going to do that. Yeah, it's a good card, and if it's sent to the graveyard from the hand or field, you can send 1 card from your hand to the field to the graveyard and special summon it. So it helps in cases where you might need to protect yourself from lethal damage by just having her remain as a body. And then just to round out the rest of the list, I run 3 Molchami Fuelos. Essentially, it's one of the best hand traps in the game. You kind of need as much access to your starters and to spell trap fodder as you can. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. This deck does not want to see Fluor resolving, does not want to see Perulia resolving. So it's sort of mandatory to run this, which is why I also run the 1 Kyle by the Grave. Again, helps to disrupt your opponent, or in the case where you need to essentially negate a 1-for-1. Yeah. I run the 1 Talent. It's another spell or trap, or it's another spell that you can send for effect. And due to the fact that, say, they do activate a monster effect, you can still recover it even if you sent it for its cost. It allows it to still be an active disruption if you can get to the Queen of the White Forest. Uh, I run 3 Foolish Burial Goods. The reason I run 3 Foolish Burial Goods is to, one, maximize my chance of being able to send Curse of Diabel to search the Filius Diabel to then summon the Diabel Vengeance. Um, but the other reason is that it also helps to set up Disruption in its own right. You can send, which you can see here, I run 2 Black Olafs. You can send the Black Olafs just to have another form of layered disruption from the graveyard, or if you have like all your pieces and are just like comboing off, you can send any sort of like other form of disruption, which you can sort of see from my side deck, and then recover those using the effect of the Diabel Queen of the White Forest. So in a way, it kind of helps you play around Droll, but still not really. But yeah, it's just another way of accessing the engine if you're not able to get to the Diabels. Yeah, Black Goat Laughs. I think both of its effects are relevant. On-field effect, you can declare a name, and they can only be special summoned from the graveyard. It cannot be special summoned from any other place. So it helps with stopping your opponent from getting to key pieces. And if you banish it from the graveyard, you declare a monster name. During the turn, neither player can activate the effects of monsters on the field with that original name. The reason I run 2 is because it's not bad to have for cost for your White Forest monsters. And then the 3 Droplet. If it was not for the fact that it's a tier 0 format, I would probably be less inclined to run it in the main. But it does also help in situations where you need to board break, or they summon the Holy Sue, or the Azuna, or the Arthalion from Draco Tail. Again, you really just want your monsters to be able to stick onto the field as much as possible. But with that said, is there any questions before I go and start explaining the extra deck? Yes, no, maybe so. All right, cool. Let's do it. All right. We'll go over the synchros first. We'll go over the main Diabell Star synchros. First up is Arciela. When she is special summoned, so it does not necessarily need to be synchro summoned. If you special summon, you can spell it into a spell or trap from your deck to the field. You can add 1 White Forest card or 1 Light Spellcaster from. You can add it to your hand from the deck. She also gives your Illusion and Spellcaster Synchro monsters 500 attack, and they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, which does come up. Last time I had this come up was... Oh, it was in Master Duel, actually. Someone summoned Protos, and I had the Queen of the Diabell. He called Light. I chained Diabell to summon the Arciela. And then she protected pretty much everything so that I wouldn't be destroyed by battle by card effects off of the Protos resolving. And it did help me indeed win that duel. So yeah, good card, love it. Silvera also off of special summon only. She is essentially just Book of Eclipse. Illusion and Spellcaster Synchro monsters you control gain 500 attack. And if those monsters attack a defense position monster, they inflict double piercing battle damage. Silvera is usually a primary way of dealing lethal when going second, especially if the opponent's monsters have like very low defense. You can get like Queen to deal 7,000 damage just by herself. So yeah, very good card. Diabel, Queen of the White Forest, is the I don't want to say the boss monster, but she's like the most representative card of the deck. If she's summoned using a Tuner Synchro monster, which Silvera and Arciela both are, um, she can add a spell or trap from your graveyard back to your hand, which, in conjunction with your Foolish Burial Goods, helps you to add your Black Olafs, Morians, and then sometimes your anti-spells, your skill drains, your D-barriers, all that jazz. Um, yeah, just a very good card. And her second effect, on quick effect, if your opponent activates a card or effect, she can spend a spell or trap from the hand or field to the graveyard, which allows you to she'll summon a level 7 or lower Tuner Synchro monster. Usually, but not always, it's going to be the Silvera. One, because Silvera's Book of Eclipse effect is not once per turn. So you can bounce it off of the effect of the Sylvie or the Arciela or the Rusia, I should say, which I do not run because she is the worst card. To get more than one Book of Eclipse, just in case your opponent keeps pushing. People used to run Formula Synchron just because it's a quick effect synchro summon, which you could use to make Chaos Angel. Hint, I do run Chaos Angel, obviously. And then there was also Zapper Shrimp, which works basically the same as Formula Synchron, but if it's summoned, it's also a spell or trap pop. If you send a card from your hand to the field to the graveyard. Yeah, so you can essentially like do Barone plays when it was legal, or again, you could do Chaos Angel plays, which is what it's mainly used for now. But you're typically, you're not typically summoning like those small Tuner Synchro monsters. You're usually just summoning the Silvera. The Poplar of the White Forest. If it's special summon, you can target 2 White Forest monsters in your graveyard and place them face up in the spell and trap zones as continuous spells. And this, again, works as a quick effect synchro summon on your opponent's main phase, which you're typically using for 2 cards that I have in my extra deck. What's really nice about this is that your typical end board is going to have Queen of the White Forest, so you can use that as the cost for the Silvera summon, instead of using, say, one of your, like, say the Black Goats or the Morians, for example, because you can't chain it for the effect cost. So really good card, really, yeah. Chaos Angel. Chaos Angel, it's kind of like pretty easy to explain. Since all of your Azamina fusions are dark and all of your like normal names are light, yeah, it's very easy to access. So you can do like Mu Arcialago and then Sylvie, and then just get a very quick Chaos Angel. It protects all your Synchro monsters as well off of that effect. And yeah, it's another way to just banish cards without, say, like going into SP. So you can still maintain your battle phase, still do lethal damage, and again, be a more protected beat stick if you go into, say, like a grind game. The Herald of Arclight, if you're familiar with Yummy, you probably have seen this card a bunch. 2 effects. Its passive effect, or lingering effect, is that any monster sent from the hand or main deck to the graveyard is banished instead. And then when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated, you can tribute it, similar to how you tribute the Ilia Sylvia, and it negates that. The third effect, which is the Ritual Spell, Ritual Monster edition, doesn't matter because we don't run rituals in this deck. the way that you would access Herald of the Arclight is essentially by resolving the secondary effect of which is the White Forest. You would turn any of these three into a tuner and then summon Herald of the Arclight. And in the combo that I'll show you, you can end on both the Ilia Sylvia and the Herald of the Arclight if you resolve like full combo. Gershon, the Cursed Thunder God, which is what I mentioned, a card I mentioned earlier. If every time your opponent activates an effect, it gives you 300 life points once it resolves. During your opponent's turn, you can pay 1,500 of your life points and tribute the card. And then you can either do one of two things. You can either destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls, or destroy all face-up spells that are and traps your opponent controls. So very similar to, I don't want to say very similar, but it's basically Liger Dancer, but not really, or with more applications, I guess. Yeah, the way that you would summon it is either off Sylvie and the OG Diabell Star, or you would summon it off of Poplar of the White Forest and the OG Diabell Star. There are some times where you are usually linking off the Diabell Star to the SP, which is the only link monster I run in this deck. And it's absolutely fantastic to have another form of destruction in that way. And then the final synchro of the deck is the Snake Eyes Execute, which you're typically going to be summoning off of the Poplar and then one of your Diabell Star names, or you can also use the Queen if you're sort of like done using her. But essentially, it works similarly to Subversion, where you can target a card and put it in the spell or trap zone. But this one, it can place you can also do it from either graveyard. So if you wanted to, you could run Snake Eyes Doom Dragon, which also helps with the fact that this also sets names in the back row. As another thing, I did test that at some point recently, but didn't really come up too much because they either scoop or you just really never have to go into it. The second effect during the battle phase, you can target a monster and a continuous spell on the field and destroy them because of the fact that you are setting a monster on the field as a continuous spell, whether it be your own or your opponent's. It's typically your opponent's. You can essentially pop 2 cards of theirs for free during the battle phase, and it's a nice big beefy boy. SP, very quickly, because it doesn't really need any explanation. Very easy card to get into. You can use any of your White Forest Synchro names to go into it if necessary, or the way that you typically do it is you use your Arcielago to go into it, just because it's a free body because you can just send it back. Going through the Azamina cards, Arcielago is a Omni Negate. You tribute it and it negates any card or effect. Any battle damage your Azamina monsters do is doubled when inflicted to your opponent. And if it's destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can add 1 Sinful Spoils trap from your deck to your hand. So Morian is typically what you do, but that doesn't typically come up too much. Azamina Arcielago, she lowers the opponent's monsters by 500 attack for each Azamina monster that they control. So it helps you to beat over monsters. If she's fusion summoned, you can add 1 Azamina or Sinful Spoils card from your deck to your hand. It's typically going to be wanted in most cases or not, but you can add the Sin Adjudicator, you can add the Morian, just as other ways to access those. The Soul Aristion, If it's fusion summon, you can target a card on the field and send it to the graveyard. You would run this just to deal with sort of like pesky floodgates, for example, or yeah, just removing things without destroying them, just because a lot of cards these days have effects if you destroy them, or it helps with monsters like, say, I'm sorry, I'm like the Shining Neos Wingman. Can't be destroyed, but you can still send it to the graveyard off of this effect. I'm sorry, that's the first thing that came to mind. And during the standby phase, you can target one Azamina Sinful Spoils card. You can add it to your hand. I don't go into this one too much, but it does come up, and I'll show a replay with that. Moa Regina. You can target one illusion monster in your graveyard, except itself, and special summon it. What you could do is you can special summon it to summon the Silvera back from the graveyard, just in case you don't want to recycle it back to the extra deck and then resummon it that way. And if a Azamina or Sinful Spoils card or effect is activated, you can target 2 cards on the field and destroy them. I would say Moa Regina is the card I go into the least in the extra deck, because it's a level 8 comparatively to these 3 being level 6s, so you have to send 2 cards for its summon. And typically if I want to send 2 cards for the summon, I'm more times than not going to go into Saint Azamina. Saint Azamina is a floodgate, essentially. If your opponent can't target cards in their graveyard, field, or banishment, or Saint Azamina herself with card effects, so it essentially can cut off combo lines where essentially you need to specifically target cards in your graveyard. I think like one of the decks that comes to mind is like Memento. A lot of their cards need you to target specific cards in their graveyard, and Azamina basically says no to that. Her second effect is that your opponent takes any battle damage you would have taken off of his effect, so very similar to Nightmare Pain, if I remember correctly. If you do like Saint Azamina and you Bell, like if they have Nightmare Pain, I think they get dealt the damage. I'm not 100% sure. I faced Ubel yesterday, but it never came up because, yeah. And then the third effect, it is essentially you can summon a level 9 or lower Azamina monster from the deck or the extra deck. So if you know you're going against a deck that needs to do targeting for its combo plays, you can special summon this and then still cheat out your Ilya Sylvia, which I think is like absolutely fantastic. And Saint Azamina is the second but less common way of doing like OTK angles, just because you just do reflection damage. And then Guardian Chimera, it's draw power, it's a pop, and you're typically summoning it off of the effect of Sinful Spoils of the White Forest. Yeah, very simple. And again, it's another way to do lethal damage as well, if you don't necessarily need to use its first effect to special summon a card. But yeah, like other considerations you can do for the extra deck is like Chirozzo. Chirozzo helps make Diabell Star like full combo if you open it. So you could do like Diabell Star, set the Sinful Deception, tribute something, get the Mu Arcielago, search the Azamina Elzet. You would fusion summon those to make the Chirozzo because it's a extra deck monster and a spellcaster monster, so Mu Arcielago fits that, and then Diabella Star is a spellcaster, and then it's another tuner. So then you would summon the Azamina Elzet and then go into Arciela to make plays like that. And then also you can do Psychic and Punisher plays. So instead of like going for the duration, you go for Psychic and Punisher instead. But the reason I don't really advocate for it, or not as much, is because this deck doesn't really struggle with OTKing. If you can, like, it doesn't struggle with getting damage down. It's just like it struggles with just getting there. And if you aren't getting to your normal plays in the first place, you're never really going to get to Psychic and Punisher in the first place. But it is nice because due to Diabell Vengeance's effect, it halves your life points, so it does help with making Psychic and Punisher not only unaffected, but also having higher attack, which is very nice. I think that's it in terms of like text. I mean, there's other variants, obviously, but I think those really are the main considerations that you would make in like a pure version of the extra deck. And then just quickly through the side deck, just because I think it's pretty basic. Lancia, it's good into Malice, it's good into Lunalight, good into Crystron, like the 3 main matchups. This is like the card that I'm more likely than not going to drop because I, 1, don't see those matchups too often, and 2, I don't think I will be seeing that. Yeah, I don't think I'll be seeing those matchups too often. 3 draw, 3 is for rogue matchups. It works versus Lunalight, works versus just very like decks that you don't commonly go against. 3 Ghost Spell. Ghost Spell is really good into every Juhu deck. It's good into Lunalight. It's good. It should be good into Crystron, but I've never used it versus Crystron. Actually, yeah, because you can use it for the Clockwork Knight resummon the Scrap Recycler. So yeah, it'd be good for that as well. But yeah, I think it's a generally good card. And it helps with protecting from Bestials as well, since all of your main monsters are darks and lights. 2 Thrust, and then like the 1 Harpies, just essentially to help set up Black Goat plays, set up Morian plays, helps with establishing Duster if you absolutely need it, or accessing any of your other cards, generally. Yeah, Thrust is a good card. Who knew? As for these 3, due to the fact that you can essentially send anything off of Foolish Burial Goods and then recover it with Diabell Star, you, based on the matchup, you can essentially floodgate your opponent. Skill Drain doesn't need any explanation, neither does Anti-Spell. But essentially, yeah, just recover it. And then you can use stuff like your LZ, your Diabell Star, to then remove the floodgate from the field and to then go into your own plays, because at that point you would have restricted your opponent from doing anything, and they would either have scooped by then, or you can just kill on the crackback. Very good cards. Yeah, there's really no explanation needed for those. Yeah. Do we have any questions before I go into these combos? And then, as you can see, I have a lot of replays. Yeah, yeah. I've been farming replays for weeks. But yeah, if there's let me delete this. Why did I save this? Oh no, I remember why I saved that. I'm gonna show that to Lito later. But okay, yeah. Yeah, so very similar. If you saw my Lunalight replay or stream in the first place, every replay that I'm going to show you is going to build upon itself. But I'm going to show you kind of just like the very basic lines, and I'll give you resources for the combos later, just because there's a very detailed spreadsheet for people who want to learn the deck. But yeah, this is the very basic like LZ plus a spell or a trap, generic. So yeah, all of your, if it's not apparent already, uh, White Forest is not like a one card combo deck. You always need to have something, so it's usually like a 1.5 2 card combo deck. Um, but I will show a. There is one like line to do all like a 1 card combo. But yeah, they do. Very basic. You don't use the effect of the card that you search immediately, just because you're going to use that as the cost for the RCLA effect, and then it resets itself. Again, you're typically searching Tales of the White Forest, and then after that, it can reset itself. So. Yeah, if you don't have, if we're just doing like 1 card combo, yeah, you typically have to send the Arciella back to the graveyard and then use the Sylvie as the cost for Deception. But if you have another monster that you can just freely use, just use that. And then from here, it's like incredibly simple, telegraphed like combo. At least the Azamina part. So, if you're looking at this board, you have multiple forms of disruption. So you have whatever you set off of the Diabell Star, which is either going to be the Morian or the Sinful Spoils quick play spell for the quick fusion summon. You have the Pop from the Sin Adjudicator, to then, which also then is going to be able to summon any of the synchro monsters in your synchro monsters from the extra deck, because you have, in this at least, you have all three of your Diabell names. But at minimum, you'll have these two on the field. So that is 2 disruptions on its own. Diabell, Queen of Diabell, can cheat out the Silvera, which is another disruption. And due to the fact that you can use the Poplar level 4 Synchro Tuner, it'll set up your spells using your White Forest names in the graveyard to use for Queen's Cost, and then you have the Silvera on its own. And this is again not counting for what other hand traps or disruption that you had in the first place. But yeah, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, five disruptions on its own. Yeah, it's like pretty standard board. You have destruction protection as well due to the Diabells. So that's that. This is common number 2. This is Sylvie and a generic name. Let me just let it play out, actually. Yeah, so basically the same end board. The thing is that instead of adding the LZ, at least in this combo, you add the Azamina LZ because she can special summon herself. And you can maintain having the the generic spell or trap in hand to access Arciela's effect. Um, and then you're free to send the deception in this one card combo or 1.5 card combo. But yeah, you typically obviously don't want to send it, don't want it to be threatened for any kind. And then you can just recover with the Diabell. But yeah, ends on the same board. Combo number 3. This is the 1 card combo if you only have Witches of the White Forest, so you will not have any access to your Azamina plays. Yeah, obviously much weaker board without the Omni Negate, but the Morion helps with maintaining these if they're like impermed or dropleted or anything like that. So you can essentially do like chain the Adjudicator or the Diabell and then chain the Morion and then flip either of them face down. Um, and then we'll do the Stellar. Obviously, again, Stellar is the most powerful starter because she enables much more. But she is much more of a volatile starter because if your opponent has a operational frontal lobe, they'll just know to negate this, especially because you're normal summoning it. So yeah, but yeah. Due to the fact that Stellar can resummon herself from the graveyard off of the effect of Arciela, it allows you to maintain Sylvie's effect to then spin back the Arciela to special summon itself. So then you can go into the duration off of Sylvie and the OG Diabell Star. If you also just wanted to sort of like extra zone, like if you wanted to place the queen in like the normal monster zone, SP becomes available. You can essentially just use the Mu Arcielago and the Sylvie and make the sorry. Yeah. You can use those to make the SP instead of the duration. But yeah, it's just is an example of how to access it. So yeah, same amount of disruptions with an extra one with duration. And then I'll skip the Fiendsmith one to show you like what you could do if you like no disruption, like full board. Yeah, that's like full undisrupted full board. So essentially, the notable things is that when I used RCL's effect to send the spell trap to the graveyard for its cost, I didn't use Stellar's effect to resummon herself until later when I searched the regular LZ, because then you could convert those two into the Herald. And yeah, you can see that the SP is there as well. So this is, you have two Omnis, a Pop and Special Summon Synchro. You have the Morian, you have the SP Lunalight Banish, and then you have the Diabell Star, and then you also have the card effect protection from the Diabell. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 disruptions, and then whatever hand traps that you had. Oh, and also the fact that you have the Floodgate effect of the Herald of the Arclight as well. Yeah, so yes, very, very fair. Very fair board indeed, am I right? And then if you're already aware, or if you play Master Duel a lot, the most popular variant, since the deck doesn't have its support in the game as of yet, is the Fiendsmith. And it is still popular in TCG as well, or was popular in TCG as well, because of the field spell locking you out of your dark extra deck monsters, aka your Azaminas. You would pivot to a Fiendsmith line to have either access to the Desiree, which is a light, obviously, or to the Caesar, if you wanted to run that. More times than not, people would opt for the Desiree, non-targeting negate, more layers, and then it gives you like a big body. The combo I'm about to show you is with the TCG most current ban list in mind. The sequencing could probably be improved, but this is like very basic like combo. But yeah, as you can tell, you go into a Reaperdocus line to have access to it. If you wanted to, although I wouldn't personally advise it, you could run the Arciela, not the Arciela, the Rusia, to have another level 4 body. Otherwise, you have to have 2 Sylvies on the field. But essentially, your goal is to make Exciton Knight and then go into the line. But I don't really advise it. I don't even technically advise doing this Reaperdocus line. It's very like resource intensive. But yeah, you can end on the SP, the Omni negate, the non-targeting negate, pop, flip, Morian flip. Yeah, and then always to account for, because since I didn't mention it earlier, using the wanted graveyard effect to recycle a card to give you a draw, which can come up and be very nice in that regard. If I was to, I don't have a deck list for the White Forest one because I don't really like, or I should say the Fiendsmith one. I don't have a list for the Fiendsmith one, just because I don't really love how Fiendsmith plays with White Forest. I think it's just kind of boring, to be honest, especially the way that they play it in Master Duel. They really only use it as like a consistency piece or a way to get to your White Forest plays using what are these cards called? The whack. Yeah, the Rexstorm Mende. Essentially, you would make a Sprite Sprint, send the Stellar, and then send like something like the Sequence or the Requiem as cost to then summon a Stellar, so then you can go into combos in your plays. And it's another reason why people were like running the Millennium stuff, just to get like access to bodies to either do the Zombie Vampire to hopefully draw into or mill your way into a White Forest play, or they would just convert the 2 bodies for free into Moon, into Requiem, into blah 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 blah. Yeah, I just think it's just pretty boring, honestly. And that's why personally the things that I personally enjoyed using, I like the Kashtira package when I was playing the deck, and although I don't really like it that much because it's very bricky, I was a big like toy box guy. Since I was playing the deck basically from inception, toy box was like the easiest engine that everybody knew about. And it's like super gas oriented. But yeah, you kind of have to open like specifically like LZ and like Toy Soldier, or LZ and the toy box itself. Yeah, just so you can set the Toy Soldier or tank. But yeah. Does anybody have any questions before I go over all these replays? Yeah, I don't like. Okay, so yeah, the reason I only like relented to doing Toy Box is because I don't like, even like every deck that uses Fiendsmith, in like my personal opinion, uses it in a so much more interesting way that it looks so fun, it looks so cool. Like Yubel makes Arrow Eater to then send the Lotus and then summon the Muckraker back, and it has other uses outside of doing that as well, if you don't have to necessarily go that line. But I think that's more interesting. I think Magical Musketeer Fiendsmith is more interesting. Hero Fiendsmith is more interesting as well. Yeah, but like when I look at like White Forest Fiendsmith, it's just like, oh, I'm just doing this just to get a Stellar from my deck to the field, and it's just like it's just so boring. It's very consistent in what it does, and it's a very, very good engine, especially if you don't necessarily need to do any of that. But it's just not very interesting in its actual application. Oh, but yeah, especially with like Lacrima level 6 unban. Um, yeah, I think it's easier, and there's probably like a much more cookery line that you can do rather than the one that I showed to do like the my end board. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you could just um typically once you get to the Azamina package, play through you play around or you play through Nib essentially. Uh, just because if we're say doing like your standard combo of like, let's say we start with like LZ for example, LZ special summon the Sylvie, search, make the Arciela, uh, access the LZ Azamina, make the Diabel. You essentially at that point have the Omni negate anyway. So at that point, they are essentially forced to nib at the point where you make Diabel, the queen, the level 8. If they don't, it doesn't matter at that point because you cert the Mu Arcielago doesn't matter if they get rid of it. The only way you're punished is if you have to do the Sylvie bounce the Arciela to then use its body for the deception search. So let me, yeah, I'll just show like the combo, like just to make, just so that it makes sense in terms of like the reference. They would have to specifically nib you here, essentially. Um, because you can't recover the Diabels. It can only be special summoned or from the hand. It can't be special summoned in the graveyard like the Diabel Star of Vengeance can be. So they'd have to do it here. Um, but realistically, you're not going to be. You really shouldn't be put in a position all the time that you have to um, like use the Sylvie extra body for the deception. Um, if they choose not to nib you here, then you can, depending on your hand, you can just make the Ilia Sylvia outright, or yeah, regardless, you're ending on the Ilia Sylvia regardless. So I don't think nib is too bad. Just because say they do nib me here, or if I don't have to essentially like do like this Sylvie send back play, yeah, you can essentially either do like, you can threaten making the SP so you can protect, or again, you can just force make the Ilia Silva, and then set up the Diabels. If they do nib you here, it's not like the end of the world. I don't typically love doing like the send Arciela back with Sylvie. I rather just use a name in hand. But there are going to be cases where it's not feasible, because you do want to keep the queen on the field for the extra disruption. But yeah, I don't think I've ever been punished by nib. I either get to, I make the Ilia Sylvia early, I make the SP early enough, or there are times where you essentially start with your Azamina plays first, and then go into your White Forest plays. So yeah, it just depends. But this is like, if we're just talking about this one start combo, this is the point in where they would or should nib you. Um, yeah. With all that said, and show off some replays now. Oh wait, you know what? I'm gonna go back to. Oh, if you open it first, that's why. Because most people, essentially, the reason is like, say you open Wanted, and I'll see if I can find a game where I opened like the Wanted stuff. But essentially, if you're just saying that I can make an Omni negate before I do anything, then yeah, you really want to insulate a lot of your White Forest plays, just because again the engine itself is like pretty weak. I guess it's like pretty weak to disrupt, like to like the 1-for-1 disruptions, and it's especially weak to Droll. So like anything like that, you just want to insulate your plays as much as possible. You know, the same reason like why someone would make Phantom first. I want to insulate like the rest of my combo if possible. I'll go back to my thing. Change the stream. What? Before we go into like the actual replays, I just want to talk about just like specific things. Obviously the impetus of this presentation is the fact that the Juhu decks came out, and since the Juhu decks make Droll a less attractive but not obsolete option, I wanted to start playing White Forest again, and it's been really fun. But that said, these are still very powerful decks, and I just wanted to go, I guess, through some thoughts about them. Yummy is like, in my opinion, like super skill intensive matchup. Snatchy and Herald are pretty good. You're not typically sending monsters to the graveyard, like from the hand or the deck to the graveyard. The only one you would do that with is Vengeance, and you're not actually going to be doing that. You wouldn't normally do that if they have a Herald on the field, but they're not unmanageable. Stuff like Black Coat Laughs, Eclipse, Droplet, Dark Ruler No More, the Sinful Spoils like Quick Play, they can threaten like getting rid of like your monsters. Like Herald of the Arc, like threatening a Guardian Chimera and chain blocking it to pop like the Snatchery or the more often not the Herald is pretty strong. But your typical answer for most things is like sending like Black Coat Laughs. I love Black Coat Laughs, not only in this deck but in general. Shutting down Snatchy from activating any effects is just busted. Like, doesn't matter if you summon another from the graveyard using Surprise. Like, more times than not, it's pretty good. And due to the fact that it's a Link and Synchro deck, they don't. The only Xyz that they would probably run is Typhon, and the monster still needs to be face up. Yeah, you just Book of Eclipse their board while they're making it pretty good. And most of the Yummy bodies and Herald have like low attack point, not low attack points, low defense points, so you can threaten game pretty easily. Draco Tail is much more favorable for White Forest, but Rahu and Femina are pretty good going second into the board. because all of their, not only are their disruptions like mainly graveyard focused at that point, um, sorry, but Rahu is like a pretty good board breaker in itself. And then like the Silvera isn't going to matter that much because like all fusion decks, they don't necessarily need to be face up to then be used for materials for more fusions. So like focusing on like removing the materials themselves or removing them in other ways is like pretty vital. So like SP or Diabell Star Pop or stuff like that. So much less of an option to flip them over. When I was writing this, this was before the ban list. But yeah, full power of VSK9, or even now, it's very volatile. Like the full board is like impossible to break. Also, Halisu and Izuna, like removing your synchro materials is problematic because they'll either flip them face down using Valon, they'll suck them up using the Nash Knight, and then Halisu either like pops them via the Raisin or the Caesar Valius, or if they have like the if they summon the Mad Love, they can spin it back. So you kind of don't want any of those effects to stick. So I typically run Droplet for these. This is the main deck I was running Droplet for, and it helped like a good amount. The good thing about White Forest compared to like Lunalight, for example, is that you can essentially do a Silvera play, and because the field spell and the trap card are giving them like blanketed protection because they are either VS monsters or the effects resolved, because they are face down, they are essentially unknowns. So the battle protection or the card protection doesn't matter too much. Your goal essentially is to OTK them by Silvera means or by Saint Azamina means, stuff like that, or you whittle down their board enough to be able to stop them from winning the game on the crackback. I haven't tested the White Forest versus VS since the ban list, but I do have like a few replays that I can show. And then the final thing we'll talk about before we show off some replays is my two favorite decks. So yeah, if you don't already know, Lunalight's my favorite deck, but White Forest is my second favorite deck. So I thought it'd be fun just to talk about them like as comparison points, especially because I don't know if a lot of you have essentially have just like you've played like a meta deck and then you've gone back to like your rogue deck, or you're just a deck that's worse than what the meta deck that you were playing is. So for me, it was like a good exercise to test that. Obviously, in my opinion, like the decks are both like very good post Jessup Hunters, and they both have their strengths. But I think that Lunalight is better than White Forest, especially because it has like no bans and all that. For like more specific reasons, Lunalight has lines through draw, which White Forest basically your opponent doesn't draw it, you hope you have the out, or you hope you have everything in hand prior to the search. It also has better lines through Fuelos, because Liger Dancer is just a much better payoff than anything that White Forest makes. It also, if Fuelos resolves versus White Forest, your basically only option, if you don't want to give them draws, is to do the Diabell Star, Diabells into Vengeance package, which won't give them any draws, but it cuts you off from your White Forest synchros, it cuts you off from your Azamina fusions if you don't want to give them any draws. Also, Liger Dancer is like super easy to cheat out, and it's a much harder ask to remove it than it is to play through like a White Forest board. Though if I'm going against White Forest and they set up full board, I don't really expect myself to win. I also like the fact that Lunalight has the ability to run Dominus Impulse, which is like very strong versus like turn 0 decks. It stops like the Lupus plays. If they do set up something like, say you're going second to Draco Tail, you can do the Dominus Impulse to stop the Fimena. All that. White Forest can't do that, like, at all. And it's just like, you have to run something that can address them immediately. Or you, like, for like example, like the Fimena, you like called by, you hope you draw the one called by to hit the Fimena with. And also Lunalight, just like if we're talking like engine versus engine, Lunalight has better capabilities of going second, due to being able to recover materials with like perfume, with like tiger. You can put up equally like staggering amounts of damage very quickly, and then if you banish the Kaleido Chick, it protects your battle phase completely. I think they both have like very good battle phase and OTK setups, but okay. But yeah, it's just like Lunalight can break boards with engine. It also has the ability. It also has the fact that again you can cheat it out with heavy poly. You can cheat it out with Lunalight fusion, and the materials stick much better unless they banish them, which not all decks have capabilities of doing. If it's just like pops, that's fine. But if you pop a White Forest monster in the middle of a combo, yeah, you're kind of fucked more times than not. So yeah, but it mainly comes down to like Liger Dancer just being a better win con than most of like what White Forest can do, because White Forest's best win cons are usually accessed going first. You don't really access them going second. Not play. I mean, I don't play IRL in general, but one day maybe. I do have actually Lunalight cards that my brother gifted me like a while ago. I could technically build a deck if I wanted to. If I remember, he gifted me the cards when I was like at 1K or like 1.5K subscribers. But yeah. I will show some replays now. Oh, and the other thing is that my locals, the way. Okay, I'll try to explain this in the best way possible. The way I live in Brooklyn, and the best like locals to go to is Gamer's Choice. I'm pretty sure most people should be aware. I live in New York City, obviously. So like Gamer's Choice is in Queens, and the way that where it is centered in Queens is very inaccessible. If I was to essentially try to get there from my house without a car, I'd have to take 3 separate trains just to get there. And even if you take a car, it's still like a very annoying process of getting there. But yeah, there's a few reasons I don't go to locals, but yeah. All right, so let's go over some replays. First replay comes up versus Lito, our wonderful Vanquish Soul player. As you can tell, he only has the Azuna as a play. And yeah, my hand is like pretty good-ish. But let's go through it. I go first here, right? Yeah. All right, so he didn't do anything due to the fact that he could have, yeah, he could have Azuna'd earlier or at all, but I already had the threatening. Once I hit SP, it was just game. He never makes anything to threaten it because I have the Omni, I have the SP, I have the Forbidden Droplet, which Jahara drew. I have the Sinful Spoils to make Guardian Chimera. I have the Morian. Uh, and what you'll see is that I make a at that point, like as soon as I knew, like either like I know that he's playing Vanquish, so obviously I don't have to use every single of these resources, or I can manage it a little bit better. Because there's only but so much things he can do. The only things that are really dead are like the Morian, unless he has like nothing to spin it back with, and it's really just the Morian. But motherfucker, top deck shifter, by the way, cringe. Yeah, I negate Shifter just because I don't want that to resolve at all. His deck can play through Shifter, my deck cannot. So, crazy top deck. I get the Black Olafs off of the Guardian Chimera. I pop the two names, so you can't go into the Ripper. And at this point, he can't contest. He can't contest the rest of his board. I can shut down anything that he would activate using the Black Olafs. I still have the Droplet. I still have the Morian. Yeah, GG's little bro, essentially. Let me see. Yummy replays. I do. This one I also go first. From there, once he doesn't get anything off the Fua, I know I can just full combo him for in terms of like any specific things, yeah, there's nothing really specific about this combo. Like it's just very standardized. I just use the Diabell Star to recur back the called by. Just in case. I'm pretty sure this was just game 1 of my duel. So not wanting to essentially have to waste the Silvera if I didn't have to. Yeah, and he's playing this dumb Melfi card for some reason. Yeah, once I see the drones play, yeah. Once I saw the drones play, I knew he was on Yummy. So essentially, it's just like contesting every single summon without necessarily using the pop. So having like the execute to send this into the graveyard so that the Akroki doesn't have anything to do, and then making sure that he doesn't convert the Kagari and the second token into the into the Cupsy. And again, yeah, you set the two names in the back row to use as fodder for the queen, and then I can also use that same fodder for the LZ as well if I don't necessarily have to use these two. And then you can, since I set them as continuous spells, I can also use my own continuous spells as pops for him during the battle phase if I needed to. But yeah, he was not going to win that game either. Then I just have a bunch of Draco Tail replays. We'll do this one. This is me going second into Draco Tail. As you can tell, he doesn't have a single real play. So I think he just passed. Yeah, she just passes. My goal is to just like. Sorry. My goal at this point, since he has me under Perulia, is to sort of like minimize as much of the summons as possible and just try to put down game before then. But as you can tell, he also has the Fu and he also has Ash, and they draw a bunch of cards off of me for this, but. All right. Yeah. Long chain. I'm sorry if that was too fast, but essentially, I try to set a. He chains 5 mana while I'm doing in the middle of my combo, to try and get the vengeance down so that I can get these two and Diabel to the like overkill point, especially because I don't want him to threaten Pan. When I was playing a lot of Draco Tail players, they were setting up like during my battle phase, they would use Pan's effect to get another body on field so that I would barely miss lethal, and then they would try to outgrind me out that way. So I'm just essentially trying to put out basically all the damage that I could in one go. I Black Goat Laughs call the Arthalion, just because he'd have to activate another name for this to be worth it. And due to the fact that I have the Diabels on the field, this doesn't threaten me anymore because all my monsters are protected from being destroyed by card effects. So the only thing he can do is pop the Deception. But since I already used the field spell, the Deception is worthless anyway. I just use the Deception to I just use the Arciella to get the Azamina LZ, chain block, and get this set up that way. But this is basically worthless. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, and then I just have the talents take the Gulamel and win that way. But yeah, I don't. It's really more. It was really more of like a judgment call. I didn't really want to go and give him draws to the point where he can threaten a 5 mana, but because my hand was so good, I just decided that it'd be fine to do it. And I had enough resources that like stuff like Ash really wasn't going to do too much. No, it's not the same player. Uh, yeah. So at this point, would have converted these two into the SP. Uh, and yeah, make these into the SP, and on the Diabels. This is like the only thing that would stick, but it really doesn't matter if it sticks. And their hand is not beating me. From there, I go first here as well, and this guy gets very punished for yeah. So called by the Veiler, help that resolve. So yeah, don't remember what game this was, but yeah, at that point there was like no real reason for me to I don't really care about recovering the impermanence or uh the tails, so I just recurred back the called by, and he then decided to wait to use 5 mana when I got my called by back, so I then chain called by again to his 5 mana, and he just loses because this hand doesn't do anything either. uh and I full combo from there, or I would have full comboed from there, but he ends up scooping. And push this one. Yeah, just another replay where it's like he has a bad hand, or like not a bad hand, but like I have the Fua, so I get something out of this. Yeah, so so he negates the summon using the Diabels, but I ensure that he tries not. He doesn't get another draw, and also the fact that he draws his droll doesn't matter at this point because I pretty much have everything that I would need, and I can chain the wanted before the droll resolves. And yeah, I just do lethal because even though I don't have the Diabels, Diabel Star is a Diabel monster, so I can cheat out the Silvera, and this puts me way over lethal. And then even if I didn't get to lethal, I could just thrust into any of my sided cards and pretty much shut him down, uh, whether that be like Black Coats or something of that nature. Thank you, good sir. Um, All right, so as you can see, this is a Floodgate matchup versus Mimigul. Just to show off a replay where I use one of the other Azamina cards rather than what is doing. Obviously, I can't normal summon because of the field spell, so obviously I need to get rid of that before I do anything. And he also has like the Mimigul room that even if I get rid of these somehow, um, he'll just give me another face down so that I can't normal summon. So what I do is he chains Black Goat. I, what I could have done instead of just like ending on this meager-ish looking half board is I could have searched for the LZ instead, um, so I could end on the Diabel Queen. Uh, but at that point, he had already used all of his resources. So ending on this was fine. I have the Omni, I have the Morian, I have the Called By, and I think, yeah, I could live through this. I think pretty well. I then thankfully just draw Ash for room and he scoops because I just summon the Diabels from the graveyard, and then I just pop the Sky Crisis and then just run in for game. I think I'll show like 2, 3 more replays. So, this was 2 days ago, 3 days ago, something like that. With the new Dark Lord support, I didn't actually, for some reason, register that he was on a 60 card pile. But I do mostly full combo. Yeah, so the only thing I don't do is make SP, but I still have set up for Guardian Chimera, so it's not so bad. And I still have the Arciella in the graveyard so that I could not use any of these three to make the Guardian Chimera. Um, but realistically, yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I negate this one because I know it searches Droplet, so I rather not have to deal with that, and I don't want any more advantage to come up. And then I do go for the pop on the Condemned, uh, just because I'm not familiar with this matchup, so I didn't know what exactly to do. But but it cheats out that. This is a misplay by me because the second effect is a quick effect, so I should have just held the Black Goat Laughs there, but it doesn't matter too much. I unfortunately did not know that Vingolf's Blessing had a graveyard effect, but I didn't want its on-field effect to resolve, so prop might have been a bad play, but and at this point, my only disruptions are the Morian. And yeah, I think at this point he just ran out of juice to like really do anything. Because he can, yeah, he never was able. I'm guessing he just wasn't able to threaten like running over any of my monsters at that point, and then he just loses at this point. Yeah, pop those two. And yeah, I wasn't sure what he would have, so I just try to pop the Fallen Sanctuary. Yeah, that's it. And then I never recorded game two because game two was free, and they lost. And then two more. What can I do? I would like to preface this by saying that he misplays terribly in this game, and again, he's running this very bad card. And I'll show, and you'll definitely see the replay, the misplay when he gets there, because he summons the wrong synchro. But he's going first. Why are we summoning Cookie? And then procking Cookie. So yeah, this is the misplay, as you can tell. He obviously wanted to summon Lollipo, but or obviously should be summoning Lollipo. Uh, Okay. So minimum, he has double Herald setup. Um, and he has Called By, obviously, which is down there. Uh, but I do have my deck's best two answers, which is Black Goat Laughs to call Snatchy, and then Droplet to address the Herald. But I also don't want him to set up the second Herald. Even if I negate the first Herald, I just want to get both of these out of the way immediately. But I also do need a starter to make this playable. And then obviously I don't know that he has the Called By in the back row, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't end up mattering too much, because the most viable thing to Called By versus us would be the Azamina LZ to stop us from getting to Deception, or if you even wanted to save it before then, you could Called By the target for this hollowed Azamina to prevent us from recurring the card back to hand, because it needs to be added back to the deck or the extra deck for you to get the card back. So it also helps if, like, say you run Bastiles and you Bastille the target for the hollowed Azamina's recursion effect. But yeah, but minimum double Herald setup, Snatchy, bunch of setups for Lollipo. He doesn't have the cookie anymore because he wasted it terribly for no reason, and he can also set up the Akroki if he runs the Akroki, which I don't know if he does. So my assumption when I called the Black Goat Laughs, sorry, let me pause, was that this was surprise, and that he had just hard drew it, but that wasn't the case. So yeah, due to the fact that I sent the Stellar for the cost of Sinful, um, I was still able to make the Queen by sending the effect. So still had the bridge, and at this point, he just loses. Yeah, so 1,000, 2,200, Cookie is 0, and Lollipo is 1,200, so 22, 46, 28, and that's just game. Is there any questions with those replays or not? Thank you, guys. Yes, this will be uploaded on YouTube, my good sir. But if you have any questions now, I'm happy to answer them. I'm not going to go... I don't have too much left to go over. I think I'm just going to show like 2 more replays, talk about and then talk about some other things. Or if you want, I could show you the deck list. It's not too different from what I had sent you the first time. Oh, systems. Oh, you're fine. You're fine. I think I've been yapping for a bit now, to be honest. I think it's gonna be a long stream. JiGun will confirm whether or not that is true or not. Yes, Yes, okay. The deck has layers, bro. Ooh, okay, I can answer that. Sure. How do I think White Forest will frame in TCG post ban this and MD if it drops next time? Okay, so I'll do the TCG first. And I guess it completely eliminates the fact that I have for my final thoughts thing. So in TCG, I think it'll do very well. Because we already have results pre-ban list. We have somebody topped 32. Yeah, he top 32'd the NAWCQ. He ultimately ended up losing to Triff, if I remember correctly. No. He who did he lose? I think he lost to a Vanquish Soul player. I don't remember. I could get the answer because I posted it in the Master Duel Meta White Forest chat. But yeah, somebody topped NAWCQ. He got top 32. Someone got top 32 at YCS Vancouver. He lost to Triff on Yummy, and Triff ended up winning the entire event. So at that, like, already doing well in that regard. And then obviously there was the, yes, I can show you the deck list in a quick sec, and I'll also post it in the chat as well. There was also the guy who got 9th place at Worlds. He was the Oceanic guy who qualified. He qualified through the Oceanic WCQ, and he got second. He ended up losing to Heraldic Ryziel. So yeah, he ends up getting 9th at Worlds. He was shown in a feature match with Tom K. Tom K was the guy who got second with Lunalight at Worlds. And the only reason that the White Forest player didn't get top 8 is due to tiebreakers. They gave the tiebreaker to Julian K, aka the Vanquish Soul player who ended up winning the entire Worlds event. So realistically, I think either if I don't know how they do matchups, but either if he avoided the Lunalight player, because the Lunalight player ends up beating him 2-0 or 2-1, 2-0, 2-1 or whatever. Yeah, I imagine, honestly, I think a lot of people were thinking that the White Forest player was going to get like 7th or 8th, so making top cut, but he just barely missed out. He ends up getting 9th. So I think the fact that the format is even better in the sense that there's no there's gonna be less Malice, there's gonna be less Ryziel, and the top decks outside of those are much weaker, with the exception of Draco Tail, but you can beat Draco Tail pretty handedly more times than not, is great. The biggest issue is that with the ban list not hitting Mitsu, a lot of people have either gone to playing your Mitsu or Mitsu Yummy, and anybody who plays versus Mitsu will side or main Droll. I literally lost one of my matchups yesterday, 0-2, because what was he playing? I don't remember if he was playing. But he said he literally told me, because I typed it out. I was like, "Who mains Droll in this format?" He's like, "I do, because of Evil Mitsurugi." So he literally only mains Droll solely because of Mitsurugi. And I lost 0-2 because he drolled me both games. And like, at that point, what am I supposed to do? But if you can avoid Droll, I think the deck's great. I compare it to like Hero or like Synchron, or like, those decks where the decks have a lot of tools. You just have to be good at using those tools and knowing the matchups to get the most out of them. Okay, maybe not Synchron, but you know what I mean. A good pilot can carry the deck, essentially, to very high results without necessarily the deck being an amazing deck. on paper. No, I still like Synchrons. I think like if we're not like accounting for format, if I'm just accounting for like how the decks actually function, uh, I consider Synchron as like rogue deck that if you know how to pilot it and how to and you have game knowledge and deck knowledge of like other decks, then you can do fine with it, or you can do really good with it. I mean, it's been proven a bunch. I can show my deck list, and I'll post it. Yeah, my deck list. Like nothing too crazy. Like I explain each card like one for one. Like pretty simply in the actual recording. So yeah, the only thing I changed from my last deck list to now is that I took out D-Berry and I just added Solemn Judgment because again, White Forest can just get white. You can just not banish, but you can mill the Solemn Judgment and then just recover it with the Diabell. So it gives you a quote unquote another Omni. Yeah, if you want, I can just like take a screenshot and then tag you and post it. But if you want like a detailed like why do I run every single card, then the recording will have that. Like I go in depth with every single card. And I'll make sure like I timestamp it so it's just easier for you to understand. Yes. Yeah. No. I just mean like I go through it for you, so like you'll have everything that you'll need going into it. Yeah. Actually, now that I know that this thing has been so long, I'm just going to actually go back into the presentation just so I can allow JiGun to sleep. Sooner than later. Okay, change the stream. Okay, there you go. All right, so just a few final things to go through. I think another cool thing and what gravitates me towards like decks like obviously again like I played Synchron, and even though it's like it's not maybe as no actually I would say Synchron is pretty versatile, besides the fact that you can only run synchro monsters for the most part. I put that in quotes. Is that I just really like decks that you don't have to play it as a singular entity. You can add like you can go like super like tame and just play it in the most basic standard way, or you can do like use all the different techs out there, like the generic engines, the maybe more specific engines. Like for me, Hero was a bit too restrictive for me, so that when I made the jump to Synchron, it was like a breath of fresh air because there was just so many things you could abuse. There's just like so many like different techs, and it's gotten like even more expansive over the years. I mean, Death Echo will attest that you can just do so many things with Synchron that you'll just never get bored of it. Lunalight was the same thing because it didn't have any locks at all outside of the engines that you used in Lunalight. And White Forest is sort of the same thing because it again doesn't have any locks. It's the only locks you have now are the field spell, but prior to getting the field spell, it was just like your playground. You could do whatever you wanted. So yeah, like there's a list of a lot of the different variants. The Fiendsmith engine I explained earlier. It's the most popular engine in Master Duel. It gives you additional ways to play through the field spell lock while adding consistency pieces if you want to do the Rexter Mede and sprint lines. It gives you a playthrough draw. The ban on Moon of the Closed Heaven does make it a little less accessible, meaning you have to go through Reproducus lines, or you have to go really cope and you have to do Exciton Night lines. The second one is, I kind of put them together, is Labyrinth slash Eldritch. They're trap heavy decks. You use a lot of the cards to use as cost, and you can recur the traps that you send for the cost. Eldritch gives you ways to play around floodgates as well. The levels for like Lovely Lady and for Eldritch, they're 12, they're 8s, so you can make 12 synchro levels. So yeah, you can establish floodgates, you can remove floodgates. The cards are very good, synergize well. They can't go wrong with them. Toy Box. Toy Box is additional gas by acting as spells for cost and good levels for synchro plays. They're level 4s. You can make these plays if you wanted to, but not really necessary. They also work well in terms of recursion with tank reviving names and special summoning names from the hand or from the hand. It can be decent going second. I've gassed through boards using solely engine because I drew like the LZ plus the toy box, but it relies heavily on opening LZ, Diabel, or not getting interrupted on like Sylvie or a Stellar. And it creates more opportunities to brick. It's very fun, but I do not recommend it. And most people don't recommend it. Centurion, White Forest provides access to Synchro 8s and Synchro 12s, so you can bridge into Centurion lines. And Centurion provides spells and traps to allow for White Forest costs because the monsters set themselves as continuous traps. That said, Centurion is a bit more normal summon reliant, and you can do White Forest to Centurion. You can't do Centurion to White Forest, or at the very least, off the top of my head, you can't really do it without drawing both engines. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Part 2, Runic. Runic was like another popular way that people were playing the deck when it first came out. It's a very mid-range, control-y style way of playing it. It gives you ample draws, just so you can do plays or to use your monster cost. You can also protect your end board pieces without needing to run a large number of the runic spells, aka the bad ones. But your White Forest engine is a little bit more condensed because of the number of cards you do need to make the runic engine work. So some hands you'll really just be playing runic unless you draw into something. It's personally the version I'm the least well versed on out of like all of the major versions, because I just don't find runic very fun at all, aka bozo gameplay. You could do with like a small Fiends Retractor, you can make a Yummy combo, or Yummy lines from like Cupsy to White Forest, but it's much harder now because Moon is banned. But one of the big things about running Yummy is that it runs in a lot of non-engine. If you add White Forest cards, you make your end board better, but at the cost of not running hand traps, which makes your going second worse. At that point, I would just run Yummy as is. Horus sets up zombie vampire lines or Photon Lord without using your normal summon. The Horus names are all level 8, if I remember correctly, so you can make level 12s and stuff of that nature. But it is extremely taxing on card economy, especially if you are negated and disrupted, because it's not as easy as to recur if your plays don't get going, or if you solely open Horus engine. And then Dark Magician. The new Dark Magician cards in the Tactical Tri-Pack, Diabel Star by herself is equal to Dark Dragoon, because you summon Diabel Star, you use Diabel Star's effect, send it for cost, You convert you convert something for cost. You convert the Diabellstar into the Dark Magician of Destruction, which grabs you the Gaze of Timaeus, and Gaze of Timaeus cheats out Dark Dragoon. And I think it'll be an easy way. Two variants that I didn't write in the presentation but are to note, or three. Millennium kind of works on the same axis as Horus. Doesn't take your normal summon, do either like moon lines or do like zombie vampire lines. The only reason that people weren't running it is because Ryziel checks that entirely. So meaning you have like dead cards. But yeah, works on the same axis. Secondly is Kashtira. Kashtira, Unicorn specifically, not only helps with removing problematic extra deck cards, but it gives you access to Birth. It gives you access to the field spell, which you can then convert for cost if you draw a White Forest engine. It's more like a small engine rather than like a very dedicated one. It's like just Unicorn, Birth, field spell, and maybe Fenrir. And then the last one, which is what a lot of people are testing now, and it gets better with the support, is the Gemini package, Nepi, Dispersion, I forgot which name you said. Dispersion, Nepi, Brilliant Fusion, Gem Fusion. I don't remember. I can get that information at some point. But essentially, it helps to facilitate more plays, especially in like an MD format where Brilliant Fusions by like 3. It's about the same number of cards main deck wise, and probably even better extra deck wise than like a Fiendsmith engine. So if like you're not a fan of like playing Fiendsmith stuff, you can do Gem Knight stuff. But I can grab a deck list or two for that variant. Resources to learn about White Forest. Oh, I spelled his name wrong. First one is like Bim Yu-Gi-Oh on YouTube. He does analytical dives on a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh archetypes, but his favorite one and his most primary one being White Forest, which made up like a lot of his early videos. He also has a personal Discord server, which I'm part of, and which is why when the guy who was doing the guy who topped 32 at the NAWCQ, he's on that server. So pretty much like he was updating the server in real time, like his results. So yeah, like very nice Bims. Yeah, very cool dude. Rebirth of Shein. He has like excellent, like comprehensive White Forest combo lines and explanations on YouTube. And if you're not somebody who like likes YouTube, he does have like a bunch. He has a spreadsheet with like dueling book combos. The only one that I used in this presentation was the like a stellar like full Godboard combo. Everything else is like just pretty standard lines that I can cook up myself that are pretty simple. The White Forest Discord server is another resource for if you want to talk about the competitive scene and learn how the deck changes closely on like a day by day or by like a week on week basis. I'm not part of it, but it's there. And then if you wanted to play the deck on Master Duel Meta, the White Forest channel has its own dedicated group of players. I will say though, it's like one of the channels where you kind of have to take things with a grain of salt because there's a lot of people who peddle cope there. There's a lot of like unironic toy box enjoyers, and I'm just like, oh, I like toy box because I don't like Fiendsmith, not because it's actually good. They're the types of people who just like, nah, you have to run this. You have to run toy box with an Eldritch package, and I'm just like, oh no, we're not doing that, bro. But yeah, final thoughts. White Forest, skill expressive deck, can do well in the upcoming format. Pilot when good amount of tools, strong end board. You can synergize well with breakers and with floodgates. It's a fun deck to play and it's super rewarding, and you can use a bunch of different engines, and As you can tell with like the Dark Magician engine, for example, it'll have so many ways to synergize with, you know, future synchro support or future illusion support because illusion isn't very explored as a type, and then like future spellcaster support, which again, it there's like a few like archetypes that fit that bill. Yeah, it's like super viable. It's just a case of like how good you are with the deck as a whole uh, to like take it to you know success. Uh, but oh, I can talk about other techs, sure. I did not actually talk about other techs, but we can kind of go through them, like or like the most common techs you would use, or the most like common cards that you might consider. Uh, Rusia again is like the other tuner name for the main deck. The reason I don't run this and I don't think you should run it is because it is not a starter. Is strictly just an extender. Two, it needs you to already have a white forest monster on the field, meaning if you open it and you don't have any other names, well, you kind of just can't do anything. So I rather just have more consistency pieces or just other ways to play rather than relying on this. It is nice when you get to draw something nice off of its effect, but yeah, it's just not a good card. Uh, Scourge is basically the same access as what is the Sinful Spoils card? Yeah, Silvera. It's on the same axis as that. The reason I don't really care for Scourge is that you're not gonna have more than just the Diabel on the field and maybe like the Snake Eyes Executor of the Duration. Um, and I think I don't know. Yeah, I just don't. I don't think. Yeah, I mean it's fine. It's just I would probably rather just have like more copies of Black Oat Laughs or insulate my board um, than either like put like a synchro in harm's way. Like say I have just the queen on field and I use the scourge. If they remove the queen um, off of like me trying to resummon it off of its effect, uh, then that's me losing disruption. And I don't know. Yeah, I think like a full white forest board, you should be fine. Even if like they dark ruler no more you or droplet you, Morian gives you plays, Black Oat Laughs gives you plays, and again you can just there's just so many other better cards, Judgment, Fragrance, that you can just synergize off of using the Foolish Burial Goods. I don't necessarily need to run it, and then the Silvera is just a worse version of that. I mean, you can set it off of Bell, and it does help versus breakers, but this deck doesn't really fold to breakers like that. Uh, I think it's fine. It's not like crazy. Beware is bad because you have the Vengeance now. You don't need this. Uh, Afs would be a crazy card if it wasn't like the most convoluted thing to set up. because you need like you basically have to have already been playing, and I mean, yeah, it's like it's busted if it works, but the setup that you have to do for it is just it's just too much for me to like advocate for it, when I kind of would want like more generic cards that just work without me needing to fulfill certain quotas. Kind of like what is it? It's not power of the elements, it's protection of the elements. Like for example, like this, like it's cool in concept, and it's much easier to set up, quote unquote, uh, than AFS is, but yeah, it just requires too much setup for it to be worth it, when Morian is just much simpler to use, or Eve or Silvera is to use. Yeah. Oh, and Silvera needs you to send either Vengeance or Black Witch itself, and typically you won't always have this, and you rather not send this if you can afford it. Uh, I talked Chirotso. I talked Pep. Is there any other Sinful Spoils cards that I did not talk about? I do like Subversion. As well. You can side it if you wanted to, because it's easy to access off of Diabellstar effect. And I think removing cards without going through destruction is very nice, which is why sometimes I do go into the Soul. Debtors is cool as well if you want to set up a Azamina play without playing into Fua, and you just use it on your turn. It works similarly to Hollowed, but it's a quick effect and it's more layered. Have I ever used Cicerus? I mean, this could be fine as well, but I don't think you really need to use that either. And then I think everything else is like really bad and not even worth talking about. Yeah, the only card I've ever used is Morian and Debtors, outside of like most common ones, Sinful, Hollow, like those packages, and Subversion. I've also used before. But with the way that some decks function, like honestly, I could really bump this up to like 41 and just run the third Black Goat last, just because I think it's so good. But I kind of just like how the clean 40 looks. Oh my gosh, I just noticed I was not streaming any of the things I was just saying. Oh boy. All right. Well, let me just. And of course, I'm happy to help. But yeah. Yeah, I don't think yeah. Deck is fun. Deck is good. Uh I have a bunch of replays that I can share at some point in the future if people want me to, or I can share any of the replays that I showed in this video, or recording, I should say. Yeah, I have really nothing more to say beyond that. There's so much to learn about the deck. But I think the resources that I gave are like the best ways to learn about the deck. Also, it is nice that White Forest, like that Synchron can use White Forest cards to do their plays. But I've long since passed the Synchron phase. But yeah, That's it. That's all I got. You can stop the recording.